Ever wonder how a single invention can just change everything? Well, this is a story about exactly that. It's about technology, it's about ambition, and it's all about the rifle that literally forged an empire.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a pretty bold claim, right? But that's the central question we're tackling today. How could one rifle, just one piece of military tech, completely redraw the map of Europe? So let's go back to 1866. The weapon you see right here, in the middle of all this chaos, was the most feared piece of hardware in all of Europe. It's called the Dreiss needle gun. And what it did was give Prussian soldiers a rate of fire that was just absolutely terrifying to anyone on the receiving end. And for their political masters, it gave them a tool to make a very, very high-stakes gamble. Okay, so to really get a grip on its impact, we've got to understand what made this rifle so special. We're not talking about just a small improvement here. No, this was a total revolution in how soldiers could fight on the battlefield.
All right, try to picture a battlefield in the mid-1800s. Most of the soldiers out there are using old-school muzzleloaders. And to reload one of those, you literally have to stand up, pour gunpowder down the barrel, shove a bullet in after it. I mean, it's this slow, clumsy process. And the whole time you're doing it, you're just standing there, a perfect stationary target for the other side.
And the difference this new rifle made? It was absolutely staggering. So you go from that old way, standing up, totally exposed, maybe getting off 1 or 2 shots a minute if you're lucky, to the new Prussian way. A soldier with a Dreiss needle gun could stay low, stay behind cover, and fire up to 5 times faster. Think about that. This wasn't just a slight advantage. It was a total game changer.
And the best part? The mechanism itself was just brilliantly simple for the time. All you do is pull back a bolt, you slide in this neat little paper cartridge that has everything inside, and you close it. That's it. Then, when you pull the trigger, this long pin, that's the needle, shoots forward, punches right through the back of the cartridge, and hits the primer. Boom! It was fast, it was efficient, and it was incredibly deadly. But here's the thing. A revolutionary weapon is just a piece of metal without a leader who's bold enough to bet everything on it. And that, of course, brings us to the man who was ready to wield this new power, the Prussian Prime Minister, Otto von Bismarck.
Bismarck had this one massive goal. It was simple but incredibly audacious. He wanted to unify all of Germany, and he wanted Prussia to be in charge. The biggest thing standing in his way? The old powerhouse of Central Europe, the Austrian Empire. And by 1866, Bismarck had made up his mind. The only way to settle this thing was with a war.
You can imagine, the rest of Europe was just horrified. To everyone else, Prussia looked like this reckless aggressor, picking a fight they probably couldn't even win. This quote from the British foreign minister at the time, it just perfectly captures that feeling of shock and disbelief. Like, what could possibly be the justification for this?
And Bismarck's response to all this criticism? It was absolutely ice cold. He really didn't care about justifications that would make other countries feel better. For him, the relationship with Austria was just a rivalry that had played itself out. It was time for a new order in Europe, plain and simple.
And believe me, the stakes could not have been higher. On the very night the war began, Bismarck basically said that if Prussia lost, he would die in the last charge. I mean, he was all in. It was either total victory or complete and utter ruin. No in between.
So the political stage is set, the gamble is on, and now the needle gun was about to face its ultimate test. And the war that followed, well, it was so incredibly fast that it just stunned the entire world. Just take a look at this timeline. It's crazy. The invasion starts in the middle of June. The one battle that decides the entire war, it's fought just 18 days later. And in less than 2 months from the start, it's all over. Austria is crushed. And just like that, Prussia is the top dog in Germany.
So on July 3rd, at this huge battle called Königgrätz, the idea of the needle gun superiority became a brutal, bloody reality. The Prussian soldiers, even when they were outnumbered in certain places, just unleashed a storm of fire that the Austrians had no answer for. They simply could not stand up to it. And the numbers, they're just staggering. The Austrians and their allies took over 44,000 casualties, and the Prussians, fewer than 9,000. An outcome that lopsided doesn't just happen. It was the direct result of a technological advantage being used absolutely ruthlessly on the battlefield.
But here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. Because the hero of 1866, this amazing rifle, it had a secret, a fatal flaw, and it was about to be exposed in a very big way.
Just 4 years. That's it.
That's how long the needle gun's time at the top of the food chain lasted. Because when the brand new German Empire went to war with France in 1870, they got a very harsh lesson. Technology never, ever stands still.
See, the French had been busy. They developed their own new rifle, the chassepot. And if you look at this comparison, you'll see they solved the Dries' single biggest problem. They added a little rubber ring that sealed the breech perfectly. No more hot gas escaping. And what did that mean? Higher velocity and a much longer effective range. We're talking over 1,000 meters for the chassepot compared to just 600 for the Dries.
And that leaky breech on the Dries, it wasn't just inefficient, it was actually dangerous for the soldier using it. After firing a few shots, hot gas would literally blast back into the shooter's face. So to keep from getting burned, Prussian soldiers often had to fire the rifle from their hip, which, as you can imagine, completely destroyed their accuracy at any kind of distance.
And this chart right here shows you exactly what happened. In big battles like Gravelotte, the tables were completely turned. The French, with their better chassepot rifles, could just sit back and pick off the Prussian soldiers from a safe distance. And now it was the Germans who were taking those horrible, devastating losses.
So you could say the gun itself was kind of like a shooting star. It burned incredibly bright, but for a very short time. But its legacy? Oh, that was permanent.
So why does any of this really matter? Well, that stunning victory the Dries delivered in 1866, that's what allowed Bismarck to create the German Empire. And this huge, powerful new nation, right in the heart of Europe, it changed everything. Plus, the lesson of how fast the needle gun became obsolete wasn't lost on anyone. It kicked off this frantic arms race, with every country terrified of being the one left behind by the next big thing. And get this, by 1871, the very gun that had built an empire was already being replaced.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The Drais needle gun went from being a world-beating superweapon to basically second-rate in just 4 years. It really makes you wonder, what technology that we think of as a total game changer today could be completely obsolete in the blink of an eye?